Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Scrambling and Rambling podcast, the podcast that connects the outdoors and the arts. And we're so happy to be here. Becca, my co host, how are you doing today?
Doing okay. A little tired, which I know you are feeling as well,
It's
but
getting,
we're rolling.
we're in the heart of it where we're all just exhausted all the time. I think
Yeah.
that's called like midlife or something like that.
Life.
We're all
Life.
exhausted
Life.
nonstop.
Just life, generally.
We are very excited about our guest today. Becca, who do we have with us?
Yes. Yeah, we have a friend of mine, and I'm really excited to introduce her. She's a travel photographer and freelance journalist with bylines in Nat Geo, Condé Nast, Travel and Leisure, and many more. She is Karthika Gupta. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Yeah,
being
thanks
on.
for joining us. I like to ask people what they feel maybe I missed in the introduction, or like other things that you feel are part of your life right now.
Well, you kind of hit the nail in terms of what I do now. But I had a whole other career, a whole other life before this. I was in corporate. I actually have an IT background. I worked in corporate for 15 plus years. At some point, I kind of decided I wanted to do something different, just quit a six-figure salary cold turkey, which in hindsight, I don't know if it's the right thing. But at that point, it kind of seemed like, the right thing to do. And I picked up a camera and I started my photography business 2010. So it's been a long journey. I'm still a photographer, but again, somewhere along the line, I decided, hey, I want to mix things up a little bit again, and I started writing. And so yeah, so that's my life. Kind of just all over the place. I have no career trajectory. A lot of my friends now who I started corporate with are like senior managers, directors, and all of that, and I'm like, maybe
But
in
I'm a
another
contract
life,
worker.
maybe.
Yeah.
you're,
But I get to.
I was gonna say
Sorry,
you're
go ahead.
you're just living the dream of everybody in a cubicle right now, listening to this podcast.
Honestly.
We all want to quit corporate and pick up a camera, and that's all of our dreams. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I don't know how practical it is given, this day and age, but it's if I didn't do it then, I probably would have never done it.
Mm.
I remember my mom, being on the phone with my mom, and I said, I'm quitting. And she's like, what is your plan B? And I was like, I don't even have a plan A, forget plan B. That, for some reason, that conversation kind of sticks to my head, and I'm a mom now. And when my kids kind of say, oh, it's, no big deal, grades are no big deal, or work is no big deal, I'm like, what is your plan B? What is your plan A?
Okay, so this is interesting because I knew you had switched careers at some point, but I didn't know that you just were like, I'm done and I don't know what I'm going to do and let's figure it out. What was was there like a moment for you where you were like, I cannot do this anymore?
Yeah, a couple of moments. So I ended up, so I was working for Citibank. I actually absolutely loved what I did. I was marketing. I was actually channel marketing, and I was managing several teams and stuff. And one of my bosses changed, and a new person came on, and he was remote. And at the end of the first year of my performance review, I got it was a learning experience for the two of us. And that just was like a light bulb moment because I was like, I know this in the back of my hand, right? I could wake up and you could wake me up in the middle of the night. I could tell you a script. So it just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, and I'd already sort of dabbled in photography at that time, and so I was like living two lives, right? I was in corporate, I had young kids, and I would come home on the weekends and I would do weddings and family portraits and all of that. So I was like really exhausted. So that happened, and then my mom was diagnosed for the first time with breast cancer, and so I really wanted to go spend some time with her. I'm Indian, and she lived in India at that time. I just couldn't imagine 2 weeks, spending 2 weeks with her. I wanted to take more time, and it just felt like all those things kind of just came together at the right time. And I said, I'm done. I handed in my resignation. Nobody even said, hey, can we work together? Can we figure this out? So that also kind of told me that, this is probably not the best place for me to be right now. So I went, I spent some time with her, figured out what I wanted to do, and I've kind of been figuring out what I want to do ever since, I think.
Was there fear in that moment, or was there just determination? Like you were done, it was ready to go, or was it like I'm doing something completely new and just shock and fear?
Oh, it definitely was more shock
Hmm.
than fear. I also have a business degree, so I was like, I've spent all this money on an MBA. I should put it to practical use, right?
Hmm.
So I had that confidence. So I wouldn't say fear, but it was more shock because suddenly you don't get a paycheck and you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
This looks a little different. I have to figure out, like expenses, and I do have a spouse, and he works, and so I guess that's where it was less fear, more shock, because I
Hmm.
kind of had like a backup, but I also wanted to figure it out on my own. So I guess, just the kind of person I am.
Wow. So once you transitioned into like photography and then even writing, did you ever, were you like self-taught? Did you ever take classes? Like, how did you kind of navigate into that new career space?
Absolutely self-taught. I had enough of degrees and education for a lifetime, I think. And there's even now, even then, there's so much information out there. And I think early on, I found a good community. Like it's still around. It's called Click and Moms. It's basically for moms who are photographers who want to kind of transition into that side of the business. So they had like business skills. They had how to navigate your camera, and how to market yourself and all. And it was very communal, very like supportive, and I think that sort of really helped because I there was nobody who was doing what I was doing. All of my friends, are still in corporate. Um, because of my IT background, I tend to gravitate more towards people who kind of think similarly. And here I was, completely switching to a creative side, and I knew nobody, and it was kind of strange. But I think in those moments you kind of find your people, and I think that's what I did. I found my people, even though most of them were online. I had a few breaks. One of my good friends was a wedding photographer, and she's like, "Do you want a second shoot?" And I was like, "What is that?" And she was like, "Well, basically, you help me." And I honestly thought it was just carrying her gear, And I was like, "Ooh, I get to play around with all these lenses and cameras." And she's like, "No, no, get your gear, and let's, you shoot different angles." And I was like, "Oh my god." That was my first foray into like wedding photography, and I was hooked. I had a wonderful time. I loved doing family portraits, and then somewhere I kind of wanted to not deal with people anymore, and do more like travel. And I mean, we travel a lot as a family anyway, so it was again a sort of an easier transition for
Mm.
me. I feel like that's how all of my life has been, like some kind of shock event or some kind of things happen, and I kind of latch onto it, and I transition off to something else. So yeah, kind of strange.
Was there always a plan to make this a career, or did it just start as a hobby and kind of like an expression, a chance for you to express yourself artistically, or was there always a plan to be like, hey, there's money in this, I can make it a career, or did that just kind of come up later?
It was there, definitely in the back of my mind. I mean, as you know, camera and gear is very, very expensive. I couldn't afford all of those things just as a hobby. I mean, I had an old camera, and then people tell you it's the lenses that's more important. So I had the old camera, and then I slowly bought new lenses, and then eventually did new cameras. So it was always like, I need to make this work. I need to make money out of this. Otherwise, it's just a very expensive hobby, right? And when I was working full time, it was definitely more of a hobby because I was learning, and I would charge people like $50 for a family session.
Hmm.
And this was in the 2012, 11, 12. So it was fine. And then weddings, I think I did my first wedding for like $400. It was like 8 hour wedding. And then you quickly do the math and you realize that this makes absolutely no sense because
Right.
your job doesn't just stop after those eight
Right.
hours. There's
Yeah.
so much more that goes into it, right? So, um, so then I kind of started looking at, the economics of it and how do I make this work? And photographing more weddings was an option versus doing more editorials, doing more travel, kind of branching, adding on to that, because doing more weddings for me at the time meant I was away from home, away from my kids. Like I said, at that time my kids were young, and wedding season in Chicago is very, very small. It's like basically the summer, which is when my kids are home.
Right.
So it just quickly didn't kind of work out that well. But I had fun while it lasted, and yeah. So
And then you've transitioned into more like travel and like, I guess kind of some outdoor like excursion sort of photography, right? What was that transition like? How did you get into that?
So, somewhere along the line, I kind of wanted to, for a hot moment, I think I kind of wanted to take people on trips. So I was like, again, like I said, we travel a lot as a family, and I had all these cache of images, and so I was trying to build a subsect of the business where I would take people on trips. And I was focusing more on India because, again, that's what I know, where I'm from. I have contacts and stuff like that. So I did that for like a couple of years. And that was just too much. Again, it was just for the amount of work it takes to be successful. You really have to give it like 200%. And even though I have a marketing degree and experience in that, it was just really hard to sell myself that way. I was, I kind of said, okay, I've done that. I'm not going to do that anymore. But hey, I have all these trips that we've taken, and this was around COVID, right? Just before COVID. And I want to see if I can maybe, write and maybe kind of help people figure out where they want to go instead of telling them where they want to go and taking them along, right? So then I started writing. I have my own blog, which I haven't worked on in a long time. I have a platform. I have my own podcast again, which I haven't kind of done in a long time. But that sort of became my expression, my vehicle for talking about all these beautiful places and showing people pictures and kind of motivating them, inspiring them to kind of, do these adventures on their own, however they want, right? I'm not telling people what to do. And then I kind of, COVID hit, and none of the, publications were really, nobody was traveling, no new content was there, but publications still had to go on. And so they were kind of doing call outs for, hey, do you have any, stories? Do you want to place anything? And honestly, just out of a random whim, I kind of just sent some pitches. I didn't even know what that word was before, story ideas off. And a couple of them really caught on. And I think that sort of kicked off really. And again, I kind of figured, oh, this is a way you can make money. This is a way you can kind of have a career. And so it lets me do both. I love to write. I'm still a photographer. My story inspiration and my images still drive my narrative. I still think in frames. And so that kind of works out well for this, I think, this industry that we are in.
I want to follow up on what you just said. I still think in frames. When you're writing or when you're out on a journey, are you thinking about the picture first or the words that go with that picture? Like, how are you telling the two different stories that are really the same story, but in two different mediums?
A lot of times it's the pictures first, especially if it's like outdoors, and because I do like hiking and backpacking, and I do gear reviews and all of that. So for me, it's always the visuals that sort of come front and center, and then based on what I'm seeing, based on how my mind is processing it, and of course the people I meet, that sort of kind of inspires me for stories. And I'm very people centric, so for me, it's less about a destination, to be honest, because everybody everybody can write about write about. I was going to say everybody and their mother, but can write about top 10 things to do in a place or best restaurants. That's really not how I think. For me, it's like, who am I meeting? What is their story? What activity am I doing? Is there something different? Is there something unique about this? How am I feeling? And how am I translating that in terms of images?
Love it.
Have you, or I guess, what does a photo come to mind as like one of the favorites you've ever taken, or like indicative of one of your favorite experiences with people?
That's like asking, who's your favorite child?
Sure.
And I have
That's a good
two
answer,
and
though.
and a pet, so it's very hard for me to choose. Um, Honestly, all of it. I mean, sometimes like when I travel in India, it's always the people, right? I mean, we are such a diverse country, and we have so many different languages and cultures and customs, and it's the people are like front and center for me because they're so expressive, they're so colorful, they're so loud. So when I'm, in Asia or in India, it's always portraits and people, and sometimes it's even like people that I'm not like face to face in, like they're off in a distance, or I see something that's, for me, it's very like visually appealing. And then I kind of try and dig a little bit deeper and figure out, the who, what, why, and when and stuff. When I'm outdoors, nature, obviously, I mean, it's just such a beautiful sort of way to kind of interact, right? You see mountains, you see rivers, you see all of that, all of the good stuff, and sort of my eye kind of gravitates towards those things. So it's kind of, I don't know if I answered your question, but it's kind of depends on where I am.
Well,
Sure.
kind of a more to that. Like, is there a person that you took a picture of or portrait of, and you thought that you knew what their story was, and then as you talked to them, that you kind of learned something different, and it kind of changed your perspective of what that story is that you were capturing?
Several. So this one comes to mind because I was thinking about this. I was putting some images together for a story. And again, this is India. So we have where I'm from, Bombay. I was born and brought up in Bombay, and in a lot of parts of the country, we drink sugarcane juice, especially in summer, because it's it's cooling, it's just delicious. And we were traveling as a family, rural Maharashtra, which is a state that I'm from, and right in deep in the interior. And we saw on the side of the road there was this stall, and he was selling fresh sugarcane juice. We call it ganna. So it's fresh sugarcane juice. He was traditionally dressed. He had like a completely white outfit. He had a white cap and a really beautiful like sindoor, not sindoor, like yeah, I guess you could call it sindoor, a religious sort of a thing. And his machine there was kind of a cover, like a sheet covering the machine that was behind it. And he was just, I mean, again, it was just, you're thinking white outfit, orange, and this man, older gentleman, very expressive face. So of course, I always travel with my camera, and we had stopped, and so I was like, "Oh, I want to take a picture of him." So I asked him. I always ask, "Can I take a picture?" And so he was like very shy. He was smiling, and then I was like, "Oh, so can we see?" And my kids were there, so they were very curious about the whole operation. So we were like, "Oh, can we see?" And he peeled off the curtain, and it was actually a cow. It was a cow that was moving around the machine. I have, like, in the cities, you see a machine that's manually done, or
Sure.
it's electrical, right? This man had a cow, a beautiful cow again. And the cow was moving around in circles, and he was putting the sugar cane, the sugar cane, and the juice was coming out. And that whole thing, I think we must have spent like 3 hours with him. We had God knows how many glasses of sugarcane juice, and just listening to his story. And you think that, this is a person, this is his livelihood, this is his story. Whereas, in the cities, it's like all fast, and, you get it in a styrofoam cup. He had like a glass cup, glass, and he was washing it, and his cow was, going in circles. It was just, even now when I close my eyes, the picture is right there, right? So it's moments like this, I think, that really transform travel. Travel becomes less of checking the box. I mean, yes, anybody can have sugarcane juice and it's delicious, but the fact that this gentleman has a cow, and the cow is his livelihood, and the cow has a name, and the whole story of the cow, it just makes it so much more meaningful.
I also love it's so symbolic that he pulled back a curtain. Like that's such a metaphor, pulling back a
Right,
curtain
right. And
and then being
we didn't know what
surprised.
was there behind it, right? I mean, we were just asking him questions like, how long has it been? Where are you from? Da 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 da. And then the kids were like, "Oh, we want to see." And then there's the cow.
Do you feel like traveling with your kids or like even just kids being around in general helps? I imagine it can help with curiosity, right? Because kids will ask such questions. How does it change the way you travel when you're with your kids versus when you're not?
Um, I think it's definitely changed the way I travel solo as well. Like I'm a relatively introvertish person. I like to kind of have adventures and kind of experience things on my own. But I think having traveled with my kids since they were like, less than 6 months old, just having, like you said, that curiosity and just I want them to experience something different, and in turn, I experience something different. And so I think I feel like when I'm traveling, sometimes I put on that hat of, the who, what, why, when, where, how, and maybe not even just answering the questions, but being open to what information you're getting. Because it's not always like you ask a question and you get the answer. Sometimes it's just right there in front of you. But we are so kind of focused, or we're kind of close-minded, and we don't want to kind of open our minds, right? Open our eyes, metaphorically and literally. So it's definitely changed in the way I see things, I think.
Yeah, it kind of gives you that separate perspective of looking through the eyes of youth, I guess is how you would say it. Speaking of the youth of the day, it seems like everyone coming out now wants to be some sort of creator, influencer. Like they're going, they're 5 years old and want to be a YouTuber, and like you've actually gone out there and done it and gone from marketing degree to journalist and photojournalist. So, what would you say is a tip for somebody who's younger, who's trying to go out there and make taking pictures like for a living? Like, what's some advice that you'd have for somebody who's trying to do this, so it's not just an expensive hobby, as you said, but it's actually something that you can make money on your art from?
Sure. It's definitely a process that takes time, I think. And even now, sometimes I'm like, why is it not happening immediately? But I think there is a lot to be learned from just being patient and keep at it, right? I mean, I have so many pictures that are shit.
Yeah.
And but I think every image that you take or everything that you create, I forget, not just images, everything that you write or you paint or you create in some way is meaningful for you. So even if it's not appreciated by anyone, that's fine. Just learn to appreciate your work, right? I mean, we kind of, especially with social media, right? It's like, how many likes have I got? How many shares have I got? I mean, even 5 people liking it, that's like 5 people found this
Oh,
pretty damn interesting,
Right.
which I think we lose perspective on. And I've done it too. I mean, when I was building up my social media, I would post like 2 or 3 times a day because I'm like, I have to be out there. I have to show my work. I have to people have to find me. And now I think I feel like you find me, you find me. You don't find me, I'm still taking pictures. I'm still enjoying myself because for me, it's less about creating gorgeous, stunning art, and it's more about creating art, which for me, I never did. I never had that, right? I have that technical background. I have that analytical brain. So for me, anything I create is like, oh my god, this is great.
Hmm.
Um, I can't paint. I can't do any of that. I can't cook. I can't. So my creativity for me is in my images and in my words. Um, Maybe a little narcissistic, but I feel like, some of my stories are amazing because I'm telling stories of people and people are incredible. And so even if it doesn't get the wows, I just feel like I heard somebody's story. I listened to someone and then I wrote about them. And I think that's pretty special.
that's such
Absolutely.
a beautiful, yeah, such a beautiful perspective that I do think gets lost. And I think also like people can sense authenticity. So I think as long as, yeah, if you're making work that you can stand by and that you appreciate, people could feel that.
I mean, you guys are doing this too, right? As a podcast, you are reaching out to people, and you want to know their stories. So you're creating art too, and a lot of times we feel like I don't have anything interesting to say. Maybe, but maybe there's one person out there who can relate to what you're saying or what you're doing, or even if, one person you've made the attempt to have a conversation with. Make that makes them feel special. So I think we all do it in our own way. We just, especially with all the social media and with all the, the whole, it's like everybody and anybody wants to be a creator, which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's fantastic. It's an expression of your individuality. But we are so focused on the nuances, the not the nuances, the results, that we forget the subtle nuances, I think.
And like you said, if you were in the real world and you had five people who like something, like let's say you're standing in an auditorium and there's 10,000 people in there and they all clap at your picture, like that's so much different than if you get 10,000 likes on a picture that you post on Instagram. And I think people forget like how big that social media world has become. And I've got videos that have 20 million likes or 20 million views, and then I'm like, oh man, that one only got 20 million, and you get to that point and then you sit back and think and you're like, that's 20, 15, 20, 10 million people in this world who sat there and
Right.
watched this and like that you touched. So yeah, and for all of those pictures that do well, there's the 30,000 that you took that get one like or four likes or
Right.
and
Right.
and you never know what's art to you versus what's art to somebody else and what.
And it's never really lost, right? I mean, I have stories that are photographs that inspire stories from years ago.
Mhm.
I mean, if I had thought that, oh my God, it's not enough, it's not good enough, and I deleted it, I would have never kind of got the inspiration to write something about it. So I think it's not the immediate, it's always the long term. You have to think long term, because that's more sustainable. Immediate is just you get burnt out. I mean, I've had crazy travel years where I have been on the road so much, and I've gotten burnt out in picking my camera, and I wouldn't even take my camera. And then when I go there, I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? And I'm like, I never want to be in that position. I always want to be able to find beauty and inspiration kind of wherever I go.
Yeah. You mentioned also that you like backpacking and hiking. And I wonder, is that something that has always been there? Did that come from your experiences traveling? When did you kind of start incorporating that into your freelance life? Like, yeah, what was that?
No, so I'm a city girl. Okay, I grew up in probably the most cosmopolitan city in the world, in India, in Bombay, and I don't come from an outdoorsy family. So for growing up, it was always okay. We would, outdoors would be like go to the mall, or just go to the market or something. I have to give my husband credit. He took me. The first time we went camping was probably, I'm not going to tell my age because that'll age me, but probably like the 1995, 6-ish range. We bought a tent from Walmart. We had aspirations of going to Yellowstone. So actually, this was not 1995. This was 2003. We had just gotten our first dog. She was a Belgian Malinois, and we were like, "Oh, we're gonna, take her in the car, and we're gonna go camping in Yellowstone." Did we know how to put up a tent? No. Did we know what kind of tent we need to get? Absolutely not. So we bought the cheapest of them all. We went to a state park. We pitched up a tent in the rain, and the next following weekend we were going to drive, and I was just like, are you kidding me? It is raining, we don't know what we're doing, we're soaked, we have a dog, how is this going to work? And he was like, let's just do it, what's the worst that can happen? And of course, 2 days of driving later, we get to Yellowstone, and it was like, oh my God. As much as I complained and I cribbed, I think that sort of hooked me, just in the way that you experience the place, right? It's very different from, especially Yellowstone. You're like driving and you have all this traffic and you're like, bumping into people, versus you're actually setting up a tent and all of that goes away. All that noise, all the chaos, and it's just you and, your tent mate. So I think that just changed my perspective on the whole outdoors. Then we started camping, we started kind of hiking. And then when my daughter was born, I remember she was 6 months old, and we got one of those baby beyond things. And I put her, I put her in there, and we again went to, I think, Utah. We drove, and we have these crazy drives where we drive in, middle of snowstorms and stuff. And we get to Utah, and we're like hiking, and I'm actually feeding her on a trail, which was so wild. But I think that sort of changed the whole, I would say that's when we sort of became a lot more serious about it.
You mentioned earlier that you were a bit of an introvert, which I think a lot of creators are, that people don't understand that. Um, you also said you do a lot of stuff in the cities and with people, and like you love to take portraits of people. Do you use nature then as kind of a reset for that, to get yourself back out and centered, as opposed to the busyness of the city?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, if I don't see my mountains or mountains of any kind, at least once a quarter, I start getting anxious. I start getting irritable, and I'm just like, when are we going? What's the next trip? And now, being a journalist and being a travel journalist, I really don't have to kind of get everybody on board. I can just say, hey, I'm going.
Yeah.
I have a trip and I'm going. So definitely, for me, nature, animals. Like I said, I have a dog, and he's really my dog. And so, he and I have a very strange relationship, and I rely on him a lot. So for me, those two things are kind of my reset, and my camera, to be honest. Sometimes I'll just go in the backyard, and I'll just, take random pictures of like the leaves, and just I have this one tree. I'm looking at it right now. It's totally bare, but in the fall it's completely red. And so I've taken so many pictures of different leaves on that tree. And just, yeah, in all ways, nature, I think, is a beautiful reset.
I also feel like we can't not ask you what, as a travel journalist and writer, like maybe, I don't know, I don't know if you can do the coolest place you've been, if you can even narrow it down to one place, or like one of the most like exciting adventures. I don't know, one of the most
Oh,
something.
I know that's a really hard one. And I kind of figured you'd ask me that. So I kind of thought about what I wanted to say. But honestly, so two really jump to mind, and they jump to mind because I'm writing stories about them. So I'm sure there are many that I've already, kind of somewhere there in the back of my head. But last year, I made my way to Kenya for the very first time, my African continent. And I went to this conservancy where I was actually going for a completely different story. And I was talking to the CEO over lunch, and they were reintroducing southern white rhinos in the conservancy. And we were talking, and so my story was about conservation, and kind of a photo essay on conservation. And he was like, well, do you want to see them? And I remember just like, because we were eating, and I was like, what do you mean? He's like, do you want to be a part of the release program? Do you want to sit on the crate so you can see the rhinos being released? And I was like, how is that even a question? I mean, like, yes, I absolutely want to. And can I? And he was like, yeah, sure. So they had already, they've had a few releases, and it so happened that the time that I was there coincided. And I went. It was, by the time the rhinos arrived, it was like 7, 8, so it was dark. Um, and then, so the Kenyan Wildlife Services were there. There were these three huge crates. There were people from the conservancy. There were rangers. There was, this family, and I got to actually sit on top of one of the crates, and saw the whole operation, right? And again, you see, I'm very visual. So for me, it was like I had all these images planned in my head on how I wanted to tell the story. And it's dark. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have my flash. And you can't even use the flash because you don't want to spook them.
Hmm.
But the trucks and the Jeeps were casting such beautiful light. And I think those images were some of my best work, and they were so like grainy, and all the technically wrong images. But the story that came out of it, that I feel I will never forget, right? And never forget that experience too, just sitting on top of the crate, and these they're sedated and they're waking them up, and the rhinos are like kind of desperate to get out, and then they get out and they're disoriented, they don't know where they are, and you want to help them, but you can't, again, shine a light or do a torch, because then they might come charging at you. So you're just kind of watching nature unfold, and Africa anyway is such a stunning place for that. So all the lions that I saw, the cheetahs that I saw, everything paled, which is so stupid to say, but everything paled in comparison to me sitting on that crate.
That is
Yeah, I
so
mean, it just
cool.
gives me goosebumps even now thinking about it. So that's definitely an experience I never thought in my wildest dreams when I started this career that I would have.
Do you okay? Do you? That's something that is just crazy, like so amazing. What an experience! But do you find that like things that you'll do when you have your camera and your eye is behind the viewfinder, like that you wouldn't do in real life? Like you're not going to stand on a crate randomly with a rhino in it in real life. You're probably not going to go up to a random a street merchant and say, pull up the sheet. Like, is there something about like freedom and like strength in that lens that helps you kind of get over? Like, I would never do any of this stuff, but does
You
that
know,
help you?
initially like I would use my camera as a clutch, but I kind of started feeling that that's wrong, because yes, everybody looks at a camera and everybody is curious, right? So definitely people are curious, but sometimes we use that camera as a way to not really engage. And so when I travel, I don't I mean, I have my camera with me. I will never bring it up to my face and talk to you like this.
Mhm.
I will, and these have been things that I've learned over my travels, where people get uncomfortable. People like, it's like somebody putting a camera at your face. And I've had that happen when I was traveling with my kids back in India, and I was in rural India. A lot of the people would come up to my kids and they would like, shove their cell phones in their face. And I was like, oh my God, okay, wait, back up. And I think that's sort of, for me, a lesson that I learned. And so I have my camera. Yes, it is there. It's very visual. When somebody approaches me and is curious, then yes, I will bring it up and I will take a picture. I will show them. Sometimes I even gift my camera to them. And even though it's a shit, picture, it's just the joy that you see in their face on images. But yes, having that tool definitely kind of is helpful.
Mhm.
But I don't want to say that that's the only thing that we should use to engage with people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's so funny because I asked you this question about like coolest experience, and I didn't know what you would say, but like it's just wild. That was such a good story, but I also know you have so many. Like, because like my first thought was like, oh, I wonder if she's going to talk about seeing polar bears, because I know you've photographed polar bears in the last, I think, was it last year?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
I mean, like,
last year I hit all 7 continents, which again,
wow.
to me, that in itself was like, oh my God, to say that I've, traveled to all 7 continents, and it's a very humbling experience, honestly. I mean, I wouldn't even think that I would have been possible to do that, right? So definitely polar bears, any kind of, I mean, I'm a photographer, so for me, wildlife is, kind of really very close to my heart. But Antarctica was another one, where I went for a story, and it was an expedition cruise, so it was not one of those big ships. It was an expedition cruise of, I think we were like 60 some odd people, and just talking to the people on the voyage was also very eye opening, right? I mean, I'm a journalist, and I'm being paid, or rather my thing has been comped to go here, but there are people who've saved their entire lives to just go and experience that, and that just humbles you in such an incredible way, right? I remember we would go on these zodiacs, and there was this one instance where we were supposed to go land at one of the islands, and it's a penguin colony, and we couldn't, because there were like there was too many penguins and they couldn't find a landing spot. And so the zodiacs were turning back to the ship, and we were like, it's okay, we'll do something else. And it happens. I mean, this is nature at its wildest, so there's no agendas, there's no planning, none of that works, right? You just have to go with the flow. And we were coming back, and suddenly we see what do you call it, spouts, right? So the whales, the humpback whales are there. It's humpback whale season, and one pops up, two pops up, and then suddenly it's like they're all over, right? So I was in the Zodiac with one of he's one of the marine biologists. He's like a researcher, like an actual professor researcher, right? And he was like, "Oh, this is cool." And we're like, "Cool? That's like that's such a lame way to describe this." But he's like, "Yeah, let's just see what we have." And he puts the engine off, and we just sit idle, right? And I was a photographer. There were, it was a Zodiac of about 10 people. There was one other professional photographer, like through the company, and everybody else has like cell phones and, the non-professional cameras and stuff. Everybody is like, just on a pivot, right? And suddenly we have these humpbacks that are going under the Zodiac and coming up close, and their fins are going up, and these are huge animals, right? It is so easy for one of them to just say, "Oh," and flip you over, right? And that's what was in our minds, but they were being so gentle with us. And to me, it was like these animals are as curious, if not more, about us than we are about them. And there's so much, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm like falling short of words, which is not a good in my profession, but beyond awe and inspiring, it was just so magical, right? And everybody's clicking, and Leo was his name, and he's like, "Okay, guys, put down your cameras." And he's like this completely teacher voice, "Put down your cameras and just experience it. Just sit and experience it, because this is probably never going to happen again." And we did. We put the cameras down, and we could hear the whoosh and the breaths, and we could see the barnacles, and they were so close. They were literally going under the under the boat and zigzagging. And they were with us for a good 40 minutes. And I don't think anybody breathed really for that time. And yes, I have a few pictures, but I think that memory for me is just, even now when I close my eyes, I'm in that moment. And honestly, if he hadn't said that to us, I would have seen the whole thing just from the back of my camera. Which is why I was, earlier when you asked about the camera being a tool, I was like, yes, it is a tool, but we cannot rely on it, because then we miss all of this other stuff that happens that is just so much more magical than a picture.
That is so beautiful.
So well said.
I have chills.
So well said, and such great advice on enjoying the moment, even though you're there to work, like to still enjoy the moment because it's special and not many people get to see that. So I think it's
Right.
also a wonderful time to end our that's a perfect way to end our rambling section,
Yeah.
as we could sit here and talk for about 5 hours, I think. As I looked up at the clock, I was like, "Uh-oh, we've got to slow down." So we have a new segment here where we're going to let our guests ask us one big question. So if you have a question for me or Becca, this is your time. We've been annoying you with questions all 40 minutes. So, and you're a journalist, so your turn to get back at us.
Awesome. Well, I think for me, like as a fellow podcaster, right? Even though I don't do it anymore now, I'm very curious as to what do you guys? I mean, you call it rambling and scrambling, but obviously there is something that you want to get out of this. And I'm not talking monetary or any of that sort, right? I mean, I guess what I want to know is, why do you guys want to talk to people?
I actually have a good answer, I think, to this, because it's when Greg asked about like using the camera as a clutch, almost, or like crutch, or like almost as like in my mind, I was hearing like almost like an excuse to be there, taking the photo or like asking the questions. I feel like this is my crutch for like getting to know cool people. I just think people are so interesting and have cool stories, and I feel weird just like making people sit down, and especially people I don't know, to be like, "Tell me about yourself." But this is my excuse. We have a podcast, and now I'm like, "Oh, you should come on the podcast," and then it's my excuse to get to know them and hear cool stories.
And I think we both love the outdoors. We both love like kind of the art scene, and like how people are using the outdoors, especially to shape their creativity. And I think it was a way we meet so many people on the trails, and like
Mm.
those conversations on the trails are great, but it's like that's a story that I wish other people would know. My whole goal is to inspire people that are unlikely hikers. As a fat guy, like people don't expect me to be hiking, so like I want people to know that these stories are out there, and it might inspire somebody else to try something out. Like somebody might grab a camera today, hopefully, and go out and take a picture of a rhino being released. But you know, like just but anything that we say, and not really us, but our guests say, you know, we're helping share that, and that hopefully will inspire somebody to try something that's a little out of their comfort zone, and they may quit their marketing job and corporate altogether and move on, you know, and see that there's another side out there, you know. And everybody we've talked to so far, I think, has that, where they've taken a leap of faith, and it's proven to you know, let them get into their creative mind. And yeah, I think just sharing that and letting people know that it's okay to try new things is important.
I second
I mean,
that.
I
That was a
think
lot more
that's
eloquent.
no, I mean, both of you guys, I think I really admire people who start podcasts, right? Because it's so easy to hide behind a screen, to read, to be static, right? To
Hmm.
be reactive versus being proactive in having a conversation with someone halfway around the world, and kind of just saying, so what's your favorite breakfast? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just a way to get to know people in a very intimate way without it being, I feel, scary,
Yeah.
because we are so afraid to put ourselves out there for fear of judgment, for fear of
Yeah.
ridicule, for just, I'm not comfortable. But this is like, tell me about yourself. And I think that's one of the most beautiful questions somebody can ask you. Like, tell me about yourself, because it shows the power in those words is like letting them be as vulnerable as they want, or as open as they want, and just sharing a single slice of their life, because we
Hmm.
know life is so much more than just that question. But to be able to just smile and say, okay, I'm so and so, I'm doing this, or I don't like doing this, so this just gives that permission, I feel.
And I feel like in a world of short form media where you get one little snippet of somebody, a podcast gives you that longer form where you can actually get to know somebody, as opposed to, you know, oh, look, I could do a viral dance to some random song, you know, like that's not really telling you about their personality. It might get a million likes, but it's not personal.
Right,
And a podcast
right.
allows people to get that to the second layer. It's still not like it's not to the base of the onion, but it's gotten through a couple of layers at least, you
Right,
know. So
right. I
uh,
agree, I agree.
but I think it's time now for our scrambling section. This is the most intimidating section of our podcast. It is. Becca's going to put 3 minutes
Yes.
on the clock, and we are going to ask you as
Okay,
many rapid fire questions as we can. The record
okay.
is what, 400?
Yeah.
So far,
Hey, that's not true. I listened to the last episode and I think it's 18 or 19. So I've got
you
to
are
beat that. I
correct.
want
It
that
is.
sunscreen, sunblock.
I love that little shout out. A little shout out to Melon Sunscreen.
Yeah.
I do believe 19 is our. I think Kai still has our
Okay.
record of
All right, let's
19,
do
so
this.
that's the number to beat. All right, are we ready? Am I going first or are you going
We'll
first?
let you. You've got the timer, so you can go
Yeah.
on the timer.
Okay, cool. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. All right, question number 1. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Peppermint.
Summer or winter?
Ooh. Winter.
Favorite tree?
Oh gosh. I think what I'm looking at is a maple tree. So maple, I will say.
Favorite still camera?
Ooh, stay. Canon AE1. It's, I think, like 75 years old, but it's still the best.
Nice.
Fly somewhere or road trip?
Road trip if I'm going with the fam. Fly if I'm going by myself.
What goes best with peanut butter?
Ooh, goldfish.
Ooh. Best outdoor smell?
Um, a wet bog. And I know you know this because we were in Ireland together and we
Yes,
did bog walking. So
we
I love the
did.
smell of wet grass.
Nice. Would you prefer a vacation at a beach or in the mountains?
Mountains, any day, every day.
Worst outdoor smell.
Smoking, smoke, like cigarette smoke.
Also a wet bog. No. Better companion, a cat or a dog?
Oh, dog.
Um, would you rather go surfing or snowboarding?
Neither. I cannot
I know.
swim, and I'm kind of afraid of any sort of sport where I cannot control the speed. So I will say neither.
Outside of your family, who is one person you'd like to go on a hike with?
Ah, Pico Iyer. And the reason I say that is because I was on a trip with him in Japan, and he had the most amazing nuggets of cultural context to the country, which I heard from a friend who went on a hike with him. So I would have wanted to be there with her.
Nice.
Dream travel destination.
Oh, that's not fair. I want to go back to Africa, and I want to do Namibia this time.
What are cooler, rhinos or hippos?
Ooh, I've seen both. I think rhinos, just because I was so up close and personal, and I don't think I want to be up close to a hippo.
And it's a fat unicorn. Like, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, true. All right, best form of potato.
We have this dish in India, actually my family dish. It's you cut the potatoes into really, really small pieces and you fry them and you put turmeric and red chili and cumin and all of those Indian spices, and it's just delicious. But it has to be really fried and tiny, tiny
That
little
sounds
cubes.
that sounds so good. I might need a recipe. Um, our timer did go off.
Ah,
Yeah. So unfortunately, it did not quite beat Kai, but 15 is still pretty good.
15 is
oh, I
good.
was
Especially
just
because your answers
okay.
were also very thoughtful and it
I was
just
I was talking too much, I think.
there's
Jam.
strategy. There's
There's
strategy.
I mean, you asked me about potato, and I have to explain the
Yeah.
recipe because
That
otherwise
was
it would be meaningless, right?
yeah, that was a good answer too, because now I'm thinking about it and really want
And
to
and you know,
hear.
I always try and bring culture into my conversation, so I have to like shout out my home country
Of
everywhere I
course.
can.
Of
love that.
course.
Where can people find you right now? What are you working on, or what is there anything you wanted to promote and let people know about?
So I mentioned I have a podcast too. It's a little bit of a dead one, but at some point I would love to resurrect that. But I also have a platform called Culturally Ours. So it's basically talking about cultures and traditions from different parts of the world. We talk about food, we talk about art, we talk about travel, lifestyle, and just people. So if anybody wants to go check that out, again, there's not too many recent posts, but my goal for 2026 at some point is to kind of write some stories for myself, and that's the platform that I express myself in. And also kind of bring up the podcast. So it's also called Culturally Ours on any of the podcast channels. So that's my little plug. But otherwise, you can find me anywhere on social. Just my name, Karthika Gupta.
Is Culturally Ours a website or is that a social media platform?
It's a website.
In
So
addition, okay. Okay.
yeah. So it's a website. It's a podcast. There is a pretty dead Instagram account, but there's like over 300 articles in there. When I was really kind of working on that full time. So there's some really cool people too that I've spoken to all over the world. So if you're interested, then yeah, give that a listen.
And we can't forget a forthcoming piece with Treeline Review.
Yes, yes.
Gotta plug that one in there too, of course.
Absolutely. I'm excited for that
Yes.
one.
Well,
Well,
thank you. Yeah, go ahead,
oh, I was
Greg.
just going to say thank you so much. Just as you said, you have interviews with a bunch of cool people. Well, we just did the coolest person interview ever. So thank you so much for being
Oh,
on. We had so much fun. And like I said,
thank
I
you.
feel like these stories could go on forever. And hopefully we'll come back on one of these days and we'll tell some more of them.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, that is our time for today. Thank you for listening to us ramble. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Scrambling and Rambling Pod. And you can also reach out to us on Scrambling and Rambling Pod at gmail.com, where we are still taking graphic art submissions if you would like to make some cover art for us, or if you just want to say hi. So until next time, enjoy your rambles.